Okay, and welcome to Supernova Labs. I am quite excited about this because I've been trying to set this up for a while, and I'm glad that we've finally been able to speak. But today I have an interview for you, so I'm just going to get out of the way and let it go. It should be an hour. Enjoy yourself. So, just to open this up. Craig Wright, thank you very much for being with us today. Like, this is, yeah, I mean, I've got a whole list of questions. We'll see like how far we get through them.
No problem.
But I guess you're a little bit about your background. Like, you are the alleged creator of Bitcoin.
Well, not the alleged. I
obviously,
am. I mean,
of course, yeah. I mean,
the difficulty goes down to a lot of people in BTC Core want to change the various narratives. I mean, as an example, in 2008, I had a big argument with James Donald that no one seems to understand because I used words like elided, which means to hold in contempt. Which I basically said to him, and no one realizes, like they go, oh, I agreed with this guy. Well, no, when I had an elided set of comments, it means I've taken them down and summarized it in contempt.
I see. And I
I
mean,
mean,
but
that's
don't get
my
me
problem.
wrong.
I use these big words that no one, oh, some not even a big word, but obscure words, and everyone takes them the wrong way.
Yeah, I
But
mean, don't get me wrong. Like, if you prove beyond a reasonable doubt to me, like
mm,
long ago, like I've watched like quite a lot of your YouTube work with the sCrypt channel. Like, it's at the point now where, like,
well, the
just
real
your
irony, though.
depth of understanding, it's kind of that there's nobody else that I know that could possibly be.
Well, the real irony is I could have made much more money doing a Vitalik and just going BSV is a different system, not saying that I'm Satoshi, and launching it, but having it scale and work without all the vitriol against me, just like Justin Sun and all these others who've made, God knows, making fake versions of Bitcoin that don't scale. But I didn't, because I've made one system already and I stick by it. So
Yeah,
the terrible irony in all this is they're attacking me for not doing what all the other scams are,
yeah,
and staying true to my original vision. I mean, the comment I was making with James Donald, though, was I said, eventually machines end up in a small number of network server farms. Now,
hmm
I'll be honest, I didn't foresee pools, but pools are basically a type of server farm. The distinction is, unlike a server farm where one individual or one company owns all the machines, in a pool, there's a single node that will basically hires contractors to supply hash power and electricity. So, I mean, I should have guessed that because Adam Smith, the nature of specialization, it's specializing an individual aspect of running a node. But what I do like about pools is there are actually fewer pools. It's less decentralized than if pools didn't exist. There are like 4 or 5 pools that control the majority of the hash power on the BTC network.
yeah. And I mean, people have conversations about
Mm,
Tal and
yeah.
their ownership of the
hmm
BSV side of it. Um,
But the thing is, if it was server farms, there would probably be 100 of them.
what do you mean?
I mean, like right now, you have people with hash and connectivity that connect to pools.
Mhm.
Large ones, large members of those sort of areas would run their own node. So there
Yeah,
are actually
this is the
fewer
whole thing
nodes
originally,
because of
right?
pools. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So, but like, just to bring it back to what we were we
Mm,
wanted to discuss today, like with CBDCs in particular,
yes.
like I guess, and like bear with me to wax lyrical about the philosophy of like Bitcoin from how I
hmm
saw it back then, because I've been
hmm
in this like for a while, but from the cryptoanarchist side of it, right? So I saw like central bank power after 2008 and was like very much like there wasn't really any alternative, right? And Bitcoin came along as this kind of like emergent revolutionary force to like challenge that power and start building parallel power to that. So I guess my question is like when this whole
Well,
conversation comes up about
see,
CBDCs.
I'd actually argue differently. I'd say it creates an alternative to cash. Now, where people go wrong in this whole BTC thing and the big value stuff is it devalues the poorest people on earth by having a system that allows a few plutocrats, kleptocrats, etc., to
Yeah,
move large amounts of money. Saying I've moved $20 million for $2. Who cares? On the other hand, what I invented Bitcoin for was these guys who earn $2 and on mobile money in Africa, they can pay 30 cents a transaction.
yeah,
Now, for someone earning $10 a day or less, then 30 cents of transaction is horrendously large. Right now, Visa, MasterCard are too expensive, saying, oh, it's only a couple percent. A couple percent can mean life or death for people in India,
mm,
in any of the stands, in Africa, any of the main nations there. And sitting there going, it's only a few percent, is a typical sort of ignorant Western, we don't really care because we're rich anyway
yeah.
attitude.
Saw the
I
same in
mean,
the East as well. They wanted to do all like banking the unbanked and all this kind of thing, set up all these
mm,
systems
but
with
it's not
no
banking the
accounting.
unbanked,
Yeah.
it's getting them cash. I
Hmm.
mean, it doesn't give them banking, it gives them cash. So eventually, they'll still need banking as they grow. I mean, if you look at the works of someone like Herman de Soto, the economist, he's a welfare economist.
Okay.
He talks about how if you could get people to have their properties, like in their shanty towns, and own it, well, in sort of eminent domain, by being in a place for long enough and documenting it, you can have ownership. So imagine that you're in one of these shanties in Mumbai. You've lived there 20 years with an immutable ledger where you save images and you prove that you've been there 20 years. You now have a way of just going to the government and going, give me. And you can then even get other people to fund that. And you can get micro loans, say $5,000 for your small plot of land. And ironically, people don't remember, but Hyde Park here in England was actually nearly claimed by a homeless man who lived there, I think, 15 years. Some barrister, a QC, had found this guy and talked to him.
That's fun.
And it turned out that he'd been living in Hyde Park all that time and no one had got rid of him. So they put in a claim, and the council, government of London, settled for, I think, well, close to £20 million. Basically,
Really?
yeah. So, um,
Well, he's not homeless anymore, is he?
well, I don't know. Maybe he likes being
You never
homeless.
know.
Rich homeless guy,
Yeah.
homeless, traveling around the world first class.
Yeah. It's like digital nomading, right?
Yeah,
But
I
I guess
mean,
so. This beggars the question, right? Because then you've got all of these. I mean, the thing is, like, I've
mm,
heard all these arguments before about like Charlie Pacer, like we're doing like enabling the matriarchs of these like tribal families to like do microloans and solve all these like landowner dispute issues in Pakistan and all this kind of
mm.
thing. And none of it materialized.
Well,
And I
because you
guess,
have to start with something valid. You have to have a means of having lots of transactions at low fees. So
okay.
BTC, Ethereum, it's too expensive. So all this, it's only a small amount of money, is complete BS. I don't
Mm,
care what they say. If you're some person in Pakistan earning a small amount of money, you are not going to save images or do any of this stuff
yeah,
when it costs you $2 to
before
$7
we
a
get external
transaction.
footage, yeah.
When you can do thousands of transactions for a fraction of a cent, you don't care. Okay, if you're earning $1 a day and you have to pay a thousandth of a cent, whoop-de-doo-dah.
Mm, mm.
I mean, it
So
changes everything.
okay, and then but then you can't divorce this from its context, right? Because like the wealth divide is like the worst it's ever been in history. Like, and it's not even slowing down; it's actually accelerating,
Well, that's
getting
not
bigger as well.
completely correct. I mean,
Is it
it
not?
was actually worse in the Gilded Age.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Well,
I
like, yeah,
mean,
this is it. We're borderline in a feudalist system right now. How does BSV like 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 it's like, how do you stop that from like being baked into the system?
well, it's very simple. We have a system right now where we think finance is wealth. And Wall Street have lied to us
Okay.
about all of this, and people think making more money is money. The thing in capitalism is about capital, and capital
Mm.
isn't money. Capital is goods, services, haircuts, meals, cars,
I
internet
see.
connections, actual things.
Well, this is the whole thing. I mean, like, just to bring it back. I mean, like, I have a Marxist education, so forgive me for that. And I'm trying to square like the balance. Well, like, where do these two systems come into contact, and like, how do you define that well? But like, it's all about like owning assets. And like, the
Mm,
problem with capitalism right now is that like there's been this inflation of like promissory notes. And
mm,
like, you take like tokens in the same way, like they are effectively just promissory notes for some
yes.
BSV, right? So they kind of end up in this situation where they're able to like play and leverage the promissory note. Like, people can like get loans on deals before anything's actually
Yeah,
produced, and this is how these crashes happen.
I agree. I mean, this is the problem is we're going back to it's sort of neo-mercantilism. When Adam Smith wrote about mercantilism, it was about the concept of like the British government, the banks hoarding money. So
Okay,
it was
yeah.
all about how much gold can I hoard in my bank? That was the
Yeah.
actual heart of mercantilism. Now we call it hoodling because someone mistyped. I mean,
Well,
the
not anymore,
irony here is, I mean,
right?
it's about hoodling now. So
Yeah.
how can I get this pile of virtual currency rather pile of gold? And Adam Smith would be rolling in his grave going, but I spent all this time writing this big, thick book. Actually,
Yeah.
two of them. I got this other one on moral sentiments that you're supposed to read to understand the basis of capitalism. And then
Yeah.
I don't say businesses, I say all these people who are competing, and if they get together, they'll try and conspire. And it's about the average consumer, and everyone
Well, this
takes
is
it
it. Like,
wrong.
we need liquidity in an economy for it to function, right? Like,
Hmm.
just having these like bulk assets just not moving is like that. This is how stagnation happens.
Mm. Well, I'll bet on this one, and then you bet on this one, and the same thing. No one actually creates anything,
Mhm.
but we'll just bet on the same asset. It's like some of the BTC people going, if no one
Yeah.
moves their Bitcoin and everyone it goes up to $1 billion, then we'll all be rich. The whole world will be rich, and we won't need to do
Not how it
anything
works.
else.
Yeah.
So let's see. We have no one working. We have no goods and services. But we'll be rich because we'll be sitting there going, we've got this money that buys nothing.
Okay, so talking about nobody working, right? I just
Hmm.
want to like segue into my next question.
Hmm.
So regarding CBDCs particularly, how do you define it in a way where it's not government has complete access and power over your entire wealth? Like, I mean, yes, there's non-custodial wallets, but like, how do you guarantee that that's going to be adopted? And what I mean, with the smart contracts that people are building on BSV now, does that open up the world to a universal basic income?
Not really, no. Um, to address that, it's very simple that this is cash, first of all. So
Okay.
central bank digital currencies are not going to be the majority of money. They're not going to be bank money. They're not going to be any of the other aspects of how you store money. It's going to be cash. What it will bring back is a cash economy. I know lots of people hate that, but it will be a
I love cash.
regulated cash economy. Now, imagine now that you're a small business. It changes the nature of what you're doing when you don't need to pay fees, percentage of your income, etc.
Mhm.
It can make it simpler by incorporating VAT, GST, etc. directly. So there's no having to fight government and say what you're doing, it can just go straight to the government, and you don't even file.
Blimey, that would be that would be
So,
phenomenal.
I mean, that will not make a few accountants happy.
Yeah, but I mean, also there's a lot of businesses that arbitrage the fact that they get cash, they don't have to declare it all.
Yeah.
So how do you square that?
Well, if everyone's being forced to be honest, it makes the prices adjust. The problem now is it becomes a race to the bottom. If
Agreed.
you have to compete with someone who's cheating, then the only way you can win is by cheating. If everyone does it, then the real price comes through.
I think I remember there's like a model. I think it was like one of these like online models where you can like have people that are like playing fair, people that are cheating, all this kind of thing. And if you have like one cheater in the mix, it very quickly becomes like, oh, everybody's cheating.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of game theoretic models for all of this, it's always an area I've quite liked. I like game theory and playing with these things. But I mean, what people say is, oh, but humans aren't like that. But, well, actually, we can, if you model things correctly, we are. You've got to have I mean, you'll put in a certain percentage of cheaters, etc. And you can't get rid of everyone who cheats. But the higher the cost is for cheating, the fewer there are. So it becomes more difficult.
So I guess coming back to this government power element of it, like I mean, there are great things about having government money, right? The fact that you have deposit protections up to 70k in the UK, like there are like strict protections on the fact, like regulation with the financial system, right? Allegedly, but I guess handing that much power to governments, right? There's this whole thing about like looking at the NSA, looking at GCHQ, like 11 Eyes network, like. Does this not have a chilling effect because like a watched population isn't free?
It won't be that easy to watch at scale. Now, if everyone's using multiple transactions every day, globally, splitting out and never reusing keys, it's not an issue. And there are enough keys for this. I mean, 2 to the 256, the chances of running out of keys in, well, the universe's history is very low. And by universe's history, I mean longer than the Earth will survive.
Lots of very small UTXOs then.
Yeah. But what I'll say about government is I think people are looking at the wrong problem.
Okay.
Now, it's education, first of all. Now, this isn't training. First thing is we need to go back to educating people. We need to give them a proper liberal education where they understand rights and power and all these fluffy things that people get rid of because oh, we need to do math and science because our kids won't get a job. How about, first of all, we teach our kids to think?
Well,
we teach them,
right? This is it.
We teach them to talk and say, that's wrong. And next, we have them look at the fact, and this one started because of FDR back in about 100 years ago now. The people like Dewey and everything got together and they separated government from the political side and the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy used to be more tightly tied into Parliament. It's not anymore. Now, bureaucrats have jobs no matter what happens. So you have a government body now outside of the control of the people. The public service, the bureaucracy, has no accountability. I mean, we say that, oh, they're accountable to Parliament. Not really. I mean, politicians don't want to bring it up.
Right now, then?
So we need to teach people to question government and to sit there and go, why the hell are these political sort of parties not taking action against the bureaucracy? And they don't want to because that's how they have their power. We have to go back to what Lord Acton said and realize that if we want to minimize power, because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, that we have to build a system of checks and controls.
Yeah, but then you look at the state of the UK in its context of like transnational capital, right? Like there is so much regulatory capture that like this isn't like isolated to the UK. This is a global phenomenon where they're able, like people are able to use, well, tax havens to draw money out of a country, then reinvest it back into a country with a public-private partnership, and it's like.
But this is why we have
How do
the
you begin to
Soroses of the. But this is why the Soroses of the world are big supporters of certain aspects of government, because this is good for them. Big government helps people like that. It helps the plutocrats. We need to go back to questioning why we have different areas, what they're doing. Are they really helping? Are they, demonstrating that they're doing something? So if it's not bad to have government, the problem and everyone sits there going, government's bad. No, the difference is we need government that is accountable. People should be able to lose their jobs.
Go so far? How do CBDCs like go towards that? And like, what does BitcoinSV do towards that end?
Once we have more accountability and we can trace things, we can start understanding more of the problems in government and bureaucracy. Now, one of the things many years ago when I spent some time in the Australian military was doing purchase orders under amounts, but doing multiples. So I remember I bought a Sun Microsystems mini computer, but it was over the budget I had. But we just did it so that we invoiced every day. And that's okay. You buy it in 10 parts.
Systems are absolutely not.
So that should be trackable. That should be traceable. That should be audited and found. It should be. It's actually in the list of what people are supposed to be auditing for. But it's all too hard, and we set systems that aren't. So if we have completely traceable systems where everything can be linked, then we can start modeling these things. And rather than accountants doing the job they do now of trying to pull all the stuff together, where there's a full record of everything, all they're going to do now is look for fraud, find where the controls are not strong enough, do their job the way they're supposed to.
So going back to BTC land for a second, like Blockstack, I've spoken a bit with Munib in the past before, and how they're managing digital identity and their city coins, and almost kind of beginning to get a body politic involved in Bitcoin that way. Do you see any value in that? And where does BSV fit in with all of these CBDCs that are being adopted? Switzerland has just trialed a CBDC. Bank of England has they're not entirely sure with it yet, but China, they're going full steam ahead with their digital renminbi.
They don't really have a. China doesn't have a blockchain-based system or anything like this. In reality, they're just a big digital database. So the first thing to understand is what you really own in China coin is a Chinese sort of digital record that the Chinese government can reverse at any time or change at any time.
Yeah, sure. But with the Belt and Road Initiative and all of the assets that they're able to deploy that across, right, that creates quite a lot of power towards that kind of system. So this is why I'm asking particularly about CBDCs today, is that with the context of inflation and there are people wondering, we're going to have to move to something soon.
The Chinese system, I think, is going to be a big problem for China. I think once they do this, they're going to figure out they lose a lot of control of their currency. Right at the moment, the international currencies controls are such that China can push the value of their currency one way or another within their own country, and they're going to lose that control. So, like some of the corporate things, they're going to end up with a lot of lockdowns. Remember, they opened up all the corporations, they allowed people to invest, and then suddenly, oh, isn't this terrible? And they start sort of reining back. And the same thing will happen. It's a power issue for them. Now, the alternative with other countries, when it's used as cash, not a problem. I don't think it's going, there'll be all the controls over amounts over $10,000 and things like this, and the ease of recovering money if you lose $10,000 and going to court and proving that, and uh, it's not going to, no one's going to try and recover $10,000 that gets stolen. They might trace it and do other things, but it's going to be difficult. If you lose $1 million, that's another thing. Um, so there'll be differentials there. It'll be easier to use bonds and treasury notes and things like that for large values still, which you can do now. So the reality here is many aspects at the top won't really change. I mean, it will make settlement quicker. So rather than having 2 days on normal, sometimes 60 days when things go wrong on settling a share, you'll be able to do it in 10 minutes. That will change a lot of aspects of finance. But I mean, I still see it from the bottom down. Now, even here in the UK, there are a lot of people in Scotland and rural England and Wales that don't have a lot of money. I mean, everyone thinks we're a rich country, but London's rich.
Yeah.
You go
Well,
out to
I mean, London
rural,
has the highest poverty rate in the country as well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is the whole point. You've got rich and poor, and you've got people who are not being educated correctly and are being left behind in what is a wealthy Western country. Now, that should be something we're pulling up government on. I mean, really. We have these individuals there that don't have bank accounts. There are many people in places like Scotland and Wales, especially some of the areas around like even Dundee, let alone up north in Argyll and things like that, that are just left out. They don't have bank branches. They can't get access to things. I mean, they have to try and transmit cash. Cash physically has problems. Getting enough of it. Waiting for payrolls to come in that way. It's
Well, this is pragmatic, because I think this is the problem I have with a lot of this, with like CBDCs and like BSV smart contracts and all this kind of thing. It's like it's all very theoretical, very heady, and it's like where does it,
I know everyone wants to go for the
road?
big thing and go, I can get $1 billion. How about we help the people down the bottom and get them so that they can actually get part of the economy? I mean,
This is it.
if
Like,
we
you're only
take
as
those,
strong as your weakest link, right?
exactly, we take the bottom 10 million people in the UK and we get them off welfare and find a way of even making small amounts of money as like micro entrepreneurs, of building something, of making household goods and products, of being able to engage online and do simple tasks. And that changes people's lives. That's how you get people dignity. You don't have dignity by getting a handout from the government. But even if you're making a small, like if you're making jewelry that you sell online, or you're doing obscure car parts that because you're a metal worker who lost his job and now you're making parts for old Triumphs or something like that, or maybe parts for old bikes, or a Harley Davidson remake kit or something like this. You can do that, and you can sell it globally now. I mean, that's what this can do.
So this kind of brings me back to my question about universal basic income, and I know like it's like there is like a lot of like ideological fault lines in it, but one of the biggest problems that I've seen with the economy right now is that like people don't have the ability to say no, and they're kind of trapped in a situation where you're working that 9 to 5, like you're making ends meet, literally living pay packet to pay packet, and you don't have that freedom to explore.
Well, you can. I mean, it's whether you're willing to take a risk and give things up, and a lot of people aren't. But
well, I mean,
the 9 to 5 still
a lot
doesn't.
of people
I mean, what about?
can't give it up. This is the thing. Like
I know, but what about?
It would be mortal to give it up.
But find something you're interested in. So my ex-wife, my first wife, did pottery. She did. I built her a Reiko kiln and also got her a proper pottery kiln and things like that. And she used to do that stuff. And handmade pottery has value.
Yeah, what assets, right? This is it. Like
Yeah,
things that are
but
made, things that are physical. When the people disappear, they still exist.
exactly. I mean, but they're
This,
things people can do. They get you off Netflix and sitting on your ass all weekend, and you can sit there and talk to someone and do something and earn a
true,
little bit of money. And
true.
as you get better, then suddenly instead of a few friends, then maybe you can sell it, set up a website and start selling
Mhm.
it. I mean,
I guess
and there's
the
so
only
many
disconnect
things
with
people
that,
can do.
the only disconnect with that is that like the lived experience of most people is that like maybe it is it's even a confidence issue. The fact
Hmm.
that they have lived under a system with social media like driving them down, with the government driving them down, with their wage, with their boss driving them down, they don't have the confidence to make that leap. And
Hmm.
the evidence suggests with a lot of these universal basic income trials is that people don't just spend it on booze and cigarettes. They use it to like jumpstart their own business, go back to education. Like this is why I
Some have, some haven't. I mean, they're being
yeah,
mixed.
it's of course like this is it. Like
Mm,
diversity of people. Not everybody's going to do the same thing, but this kind of speaks to that balance I was speaking about before
mm,
between like capitalism and communism, right? Is like how that's why the welfare state exists, right? Is that and why the UK was so prosperous up until the 1970s, got rid of the financial regulations, then it all went to shit. Um, having a decent welfare system where people can get access to healthcare, can leave their say no to like abusive employment,
mm,
so they can pursue like free market solutions and like start building their own businesses because like
mm,
that is the fundamental of an economy, right? Small businesses producing goods and services.
mm. But as I was saying, why can't you start doing that on a weekend? What we need to do is start getting people to understand
Mhm.
that it is worth the risk. Okay, so try something. At night, if you're good at computers, start doing little bits of code support. You don't need to even earn a living wage if you're doing something else. It could help you just get into that. I know it sounds terrible and boring and, oh, but I'm already so stressed now. Find something you enjoy. And sometimes work can actually, even if you're not earning like a normal minimum wage because you're just doing contract stuff, sometimes that work can give you a sense of dignity and pride. And then you can also feel happy about what you're doing. And a little bit of extra is a little bit of extra. But if you're enjoying yourself doing it, I mean, plenty of people do open source projects in code because they feel they're part of something, that they're being engaged, and that's the whole thing. So start maybe writing something or start, I mean, there's so many different things people can do. The error is in believing that there's like a limit to work. I mean, there is an infinite amount of work to be done. It's
Yeah,
just whether you get the right people matched at the right time and all this sort of stuff. I mean,
well,
I
this
can
is it. Like,
guarantee that I
there's
could
so
find an
much
infinite
inefficiency
amount
in
of
the
work.
system.
Hmm.
There's so much inefficiency in the system, and like the thing is that I see it on the ground where you have like Uber drivers that are like trained doctors, and it's like how like how do people end up in that situation? I mean, like
Mm,
for all the theory about free markets and all that kind of thing, when you get down to the ground level, like there are some like fundamental issues with the way our economy is
mm,
organized right now, where the skills,
mm,
well, the skills that are in the economy are not rising to the posts that
mm.
exist.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, this is part of what we need to get back to. This is where giving people the ability to hold their own money, to even save, to invest, to try things, and to engage in different markets matters.
Mm.
So, right now, if someone in rural UK or Pakistan wants to start trying to sell into America, it's difficult. I mean, the website's easy. Yes, there's PayPal. But PayPal's good for certain types of things. And above that level, it's okay. But what about people with very low margins? Again, this is why I'm saying the transaction fee is super important. The lower you make it, the
Mm.
lower you have friction on the economy. I mean, it's old Kenneth Arrow and others. Uh, more long-dead economists who sort of demonstrated how lowering the transaction fee, the friction to the economy makes the economy go faster.
Oh, I see. Because I've heard about friction of money before, and there's a lad I support out in Sierra Leone. I pay for his education out there, and I send him BSV because I mean, like, I'm not going to go to Western Union. Why would I give him a 20% cut on the amount?
Yeah,
it makes sense.
I mean,
but I guess this is the thing: is like how do you get that adoption of CBDCs inside of this like you have started a revolution. Like there are so many people trying out different types of blockchain databases and like as many as you can imagine. And I know you've spoken about Bitcoin being like the TCP of the internet before, but like how do you get to that point? Like what are the tangible steps to get there?
well, this is why we're building both, I mean, with nChain and sort of with the Bitcoin Association, why we're building Terranode. So by the end of this year, we want to make sure that we're up to 8 GB blocks and the transaction speeds that are there. It's more slowing down to make sure that the rest of the community can keep up. Why at the same time we're working on light node structure for SPV so that we can make sure that people can start building without having nodes that are going to be that big. And then within 2 years after that, I want to try and get it up to where we can handle around 80 to 100 gigabyte blocks. And once we're at that sort of level and SPVs in place, then people won't care because the majority of people will need what I said in the white paper, which is the 80-byte header every 10 minutes. And as machines get faster, Moore's law means that 80 bytes every 10 minutes gets smaller and smaller in comparison. It grows linear. Moore's law grows exponential.
Well, I mean, this is the thing that sold me on BSV originally, right? It's like there's never been a point in history where your computer needs less RAM or needs a small hard drive, right? It's just like the whole argument surrounding BTC just like it completely falls apart in the light of that.
I know. Well, the irony is everyone's calling me a scam because I'm trying to build a system that has low fees and that the poorest people on earth can use. I mean, that's my scam. Oh, I'm not trying to go out to Wall Street and sell them on something that allows them to move billions of dollars without the SEC looking at them, or that allows criminals to move their money without. I mean, what I'm trying to do is start with a system that will get the poorest billion people, the people even in this country, in England and Wales and Scotland, Northern Ireland, Europe, as well as Africa, India, the stands, China, God knows wherever, and have them not care about transaction fees ever again. Where when people can securely connect up Internet of Things machines, which doesn't really happen now because the fees are too large, so we've got a big fragmented industry. Imagine if everything can start talking because the same transaction type is across everything and it costs fractions of a fraction of a cent. I mean, that's how you change everything here.
Oh, I see. So yeah, it will be like TCP/IP, right? It is like a protocol that people use to send money. It can come in any form that is defined by like whatever's culturally relevant to the place.
And here's your other bit.
See it now.
So,
there we go.
And I'm reintroducing a stable commodity at the base. So in the past, gold was there, and that limited some of the shenanigans governments can do. Now, if everyone uses BSV, then there's still a stable base that everyone can easily move to. I mean, if you don't like what a currency is doing, you just flip it over to BSV for a little bit and then go back.
I mean, like, and BTC's gone a long way to prove that for you. Like, it can be that if you want it to be.
Exactly.
But I guess the question comes to there's like a couple more questions I have. Like one is surrounding the immutability of the ledger, right? Because I mean, I thought that was one of like fundamental principles of
it's
Bitcoin.
still immutable. But what
But
people
then,
don't
like,
get
look at the
is
result of this trial, right? You're going to have to fork off the chain to, give yourself this money. How do you
no, there's no
square that?
forking off the chain. Um, People don't seem to understand that um, in the United States, following Sarbanes-Oxley, because of the government problems there, like the whole audit issue with Enron and all that stuff, and Anderson going down and etc., that what was implemented was a requirement under law, Section 404, 302, etc. of the Act, that every listed company maintain a immutable database. They're all Worm, which is write once, read many. So every Oracle database running these accounts cannot ever be changed. To do so is a criminal offense where the CEO can go to jail. So people take it seriously. Now, the way you do that is like paper records. So back in the day with accounting records written on paper, you don't scribble things out and try and change it. You add entries. So databases can be immutable but still updated. This is
Right,
where
but
people
like,
go wrong.
who has to accept that? Is it going to be at the point where the miners they're going to be getting legal notices that they need to accept a specific transaction?
Effectively, that can all be done by software. So there'll be freezing orders put, there'll be seizing orders put. But the reality is people use this as cash and other types of transactions. That's not going to be an issue. I mean, when have you ever heard of like police going and seeking a monetary freezing order for $1,000?
Very rarely, yeah.
Never. I mean, no one in history does that because the cost of going to court exceeds the $1,000. I mean, you're not going to try and grab $1,000 and have a barrister who charges you £1,200 an hour to go and get $1,000. I mean, the
Okay,
barrister is going to charge you minimum 3 hours. So there you've just blown the money you're trying to recover anyway.
I see. And my final question was about the BSV price. I mean, it's down 50% year on year at the minute. Although I've heard somebody discussing that, like, when there's the mining fee like outpaces the block subsidy, it effectively becomes a stable coin. I don't know whether you can comment on like the dynamics of like the pricing of BSV at the minute.
Well, it's enough to keep things going because as the fees go up, it's there. So, I mean, that's the irony. People are trying to force it down, but it's still remaining profitable for miners, so it'll keep growing and happening. Now, the difficulty that people are going to face is after these court orders, it's not going to be BSV. It's going to be every blockchain in human existence. So it's Ethereum are going to have to do court orders because the lies about thousands of nodes will be exposed. Moreover, people like Mr. Vitalik are going to have to go and, following having talked to the SEC and Congress even, where they have done sworn testimony saying that you can't do it, there's more than 10,000 nodes, they're going to have to explain why they committed perjury. And he did.
Well, I
I
mean,
mean, this is
there's
not,
evidence that it passed the Howey test when they first raised, right?
yeah, but I mean, this is the whole thing. They perjured themselves to say we've got so many nodes you can't do anything. And I'm saying it very simply. I mean, these guys all perjured themselves. They are a bunch of criminals who lied to courts and Congress and all the rest. And once this comes in with evidence, um, I don't know. They'll find somewhere to hide on Earth, but
So, and this is I'm just to square this all off with a personal theory. I don't know whether like it has any merit. I've always questioned the origins of Ethereum and like how it came about, because their first dev conference was in this like slap bang in the city of London. Has been like nobody really knows who invested in it at the beginning anyway. Like it was like what why was it created? Like what was the point of it?
Ironically, it was created because Bitcoin should have been able to do a lot of the things that are being done, but people like Eric Voorhees and some of the other core devs sat around going, "You can't do this; it will ruin decentralization," and a whole lot of BS, and they just stopped it.
See.
So,
Because I remember like they were talking about smart contracts, and that's why it
mm,
forked in the first place, which is
yeah,
kind of ironic that you've integrated this now.
but all that was there in the beginning. Now,
Okay.
I mean, around the end of 2010 when I left, we had temporarily disabled some of the opcodes because everyone said, oh, there's potential vulnerabilities, they need to be checked, and blah, blah, blah. And I was stupid enough to listen to some of these people. and
This is it. We're
anyway,
all human, right?
I mean, um, I was stupid enough, and I didn't realize that people, I mean, Antonopoulos was basically homeless. He came in a bit later, but before suddenly everyone started sending him donations, i.e., income that I'm not paying tax on. Um, but it was not meant to be turned off permanently. I mean,
Okay.
the stubs got removed and all the opcodes got killed off after I left. But the reality is, there was no reason for those to be turned off permanently. They were meant to be checked, they're meant to be verified, and then turned back on. And all of these things that people run around going, we need to do on BTC through Lightning, etc., could have been done
Yeah.
just directly on Bitcoin.
Well, that's the problem with like power and schisms, right? Is like you end
Mm.
up it corrupt. Well, like, as you were saying, absolute power corrupts
Mm.
absolutely.
But that's the thing I didn't get at the time. I gave people too much credit, and I didn't realize that like this whole node mantra, like there's 15,000 nodes. I didn't realize such a level of dishonesty existed out there in the world that these people would make up these stories and stand blatantly in front of people
Yeah.
like courts and even Congress in the US and just blatantly lie straight-faced about this sort of stuff. I mean, these people know
It's
that
a
that is
culture
a
now.
lie. I know.
It's just a culture. Like I mean, look at politics right now.
Hmm.
Like it's just a culture of lying, and it just
Yeah.
oh man, how do you? I guess this is maybe the having some kind of honest system would go a long way towards that.
I
And I
agree.
guess my final question would be like about the Genesis bot, really, because I mean, this is maybe one of the things where maybe I misunderstood about. Like I think a lot of people did, like because the context at the time was like everybody was looking for something different. They were like angry. Like why did you choose that article?
Because it was in the newspaper at the time. But have you ever read the article? Not just the headline. I mean, I've learnt slowly that most people don't read articles.
Nobody reads the
Uh,
article. They just read the headlines. That's it.
yeah, but I know, I
Nobody's got the
do.
bandwidth. They're just like
I,
they're on TikTok. They're on this. Like their attention is like you've got like 2% of their attention.
I know, but yeah, I'm not on TikTok, so maybe I've got more attention. But
Don't. It will
uh,
mine your attention for all it's got.
I know my daughter's on it, and I can see it sort of rotting her brain as she's on it. But I mean, if you read the article, it isn't what people make it out to be. It was the
Okay.
Chancellor threatening to nationalize the banks for not implementing the changes he wanted. The
Okay, I
Chancellor's
see.
actually sitting there going, I want this money to go out there and I want this to happen, and these guys aren't doing what I'm saying. You know, terrible commercial entities not doubling down on the BS that caused the problem in the first place.
Yeah.
And I mean, for they're finally being sensible after they lost lots of money, which it's unfortunate that they had to lose lots of money before they were sensible, and then going, oh, we need to keep the music going, and no one can go to their chairs yet. Quick, quick, play some more. Yeah. So
Interesting.
if you actually read it, you find out that the Chancellor, Mr. Darling, there threatened the banks with nationalization.
Huh. Well, maybe the economy would be better off if that happened. I mean, like, I they should have let them fail. Like, I just don't understand how they.
Oh, well, I agree, but that's, I mean, he's going, I'm going to pump money in for this and that, and for Christ's sake.
well, that's it. We're paying the price now, but maybe that's a conversation for another time, because I
Yeah,
appreciate I've taken quite a lot of your time today. Thank you very
not a
much,
problem.
Craig. Like, it has been an absolute pleasure, and like, I mean, it's nice to have a good conversation about this. Thank you.
It is. All right, good to talk.
Fabulous. Thank you. So that's it. I mean, I hope you guys enjoyed listening so much as I enjoyed actually speaking to him. I tried to fit as many questions as, I mean, I've been canvassing people to try and get questions, but if you have any questions for Craig, leave them in the comments, and the next time that well, maybe will be a next time that we speak, I can put them up there. So thank you again for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Yeah, thank you.